Welcome back, gardeners. We are doing a winter planting Q&A, so let's get into it. First question, when do I start a winter garden? Well, that's kind of confusing here in Chicago. You actually have to become a snowbird if you want a winter garden and go south, because here, unfortunately, there is nothing that you can plant that will survive the winters in a productive manner, other than maybe chives. Kale is really winter hardy, so you might luck out and get some kale, depending on what kind of winter Mother Nature throws us. Question number 2, what can survive a cold winter? In Illinois, Zone 5, kale is a really good contender that has the best shot at surviving. She is super hardy, can handle up to 20 degrees. So depending on what we get for the winter months, you might actually get to see this baby in the spring. Other plants that definitely will survive are perennial herbs like oregano, chives, and sometimes thyme, depending on how cold it gets. I would call thyme a tender perennial. Certain types of lettuce, like buttercrunch and romaine, can actually tolerate a little bit of a freeze as well, so you can have a little bit of a winter garden with lettuce. Question number 3, what hacks can I use to save my veggies from freezing? Behind me, you see these beautiful tomatoes. They are not going to survive a frost, so if you see freezing temps in the forecast, make sure you cover this with a blanket. I wouldn't recommend necessarily plastic as it's not breathable, but they do sell things called frost blankets that can easily do the trick, that allows a little bit of airflow but prevents that frost from setting on the leaves. Final question, what do I do in the winter to prep for the spring? First and foremost, it's super important to pull out any diseased plants. You do not want to leave those roots to sit there all winter long, and also make sure you add some compost back into the soil. Over the winter, that fresh compost will attract new, fresh earthworms from the ground up to create a little more microbiology in your soil. When you add compost to your raised garden beds, it's actually not necessary to till up the soil. We don't want to really disrupt that microbiology, so I just like to lay a simple new layer on top, and you can loosely mix it into the top few inches if you'd like. And one more thing, here's a bonus tip for you. Don't forget to save your seeds before the winter hits. Nature automatically gives you your seed for the spring season, so make sure you salvage the gifts of nature. This is a green bean that has stayed on the bush long enough, and it has turned brown and crispy, which is what you want. So after it's nice and dry, you crack open the pod to expose the beans. Let these dry out on your countertop, make sure there's no moisture in these seeds, and then keep them in cold, dry storage over the winter. You can plant these in the spring. So those are your hacks to know what to do in the winter, which isn't much, but it'll get you ready for spring for you to go in full bloom. And if you have any questions at all, let me know, jot them down in the comments, and make sure you subscribe. Little pepper babies.